do the things they did. And there's something about the smashing of the equipment which started by an accident. It just released something in an audience that they identified with. And I still to this day believe that that was a huge safety valve for so many of the social problems we had in those days. So it cost us a fortune and we couldn't afford it. But it was like, I suppose it's like the equivalent of a kid today getting a spray can and spraying his name on a wall, just to prove that it's there, just have a voice. And that was our way of doing it.
Do you like football, Roger?
I love football.
I invite you to go to Brazil. I invite you to go to the World Cup. You go with me to the World Cup and we see England.
Well, don't get me started, it'll be all day on football. Jimi Hendrix. What do you want to know about Jimmy? Oh, I can't, again, Jimmy, you watch Jimmy on stage and you see this kind of primeval, kind of animalism, sexual. He's almost like a mythical creature on stage. Jimmy off stage was exactly the opposite. He was very quiet. He used to kind of almost speak in poetry. His lines, he was very philosophical the way he used to speak all the time. Very good friends with my wife and her friends. He was at my house a week before. He was at my house actually the week of this festival in 70. And as you know, he died 3 weeks later. One of the funny things about that time at my house, he was with his girlfriend, Devon, and my wife and her friend, and they were all having. They were partying and doing God knows what they used to do in those days. While the cat's away, and I used to love building, and I built an extension on this house of mine, very small house. And before I left to go to the Isle of Wight, I varnished the floor at the top of these stairs. And Jimmy came down to the house and he said, "I've got to go and see what Roger's built." And he went up these stairs. It didn't have a banister rail or anything, it was just a staircase. And to get to the top, he had to put his hands on the top, and it was the wet varnish. And he put his handprints in the varnish. And he said to my wife, he said, "Oh, well, never mind, at least I have a memory of me." And I don't know whether those handprints are still there. I mean, that is a true story. It really is.
Does a guy sort of over here got a question?
Yeah. Hello, Roger. I'm Keith from Warsaw. Just bring it up to date a bit. You know the Super Bowl that you played? How did they get all that equipment on and off in the time?
The Super Bowl that we did, that took 700 people, a week of rehearsals. And they were all volunteers. They were only America could have pulled that off. To set all that up in 6 minutes and take it all down in 5. It was incredible. And only America could have done it, but it took 700 people and it took them a whole week of rehearsing to do it.
Okay, we'll get to you in a minute, I promise.
About 40 years ago almost, I saw you guys at the Cow Palace in San Francisco. Pete's been talking about that show where Keith just disappeared. I've been wondering for 40 years, what the hell happened to Keith?
What happened to Keith was someone gave him a pill that was supposed to be some kind of wonder drug, and it turned out to be a horse tranquilizer.
Oh my God.
It was a wonder drug indeed. It put him out for 3 days. And as the drug left his body, it kind of left him from the top down very slowly. So we had 2 days to get our own back, wheeling him around in a wheelchair.
Can I ask you, you said that if you don't sing for